Dzień dobry. Assalamu alaikum. Ciao. Konnichiwa. Bonjour. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you today? It's Ken at 10. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. For those of you regular, for those of you that have just stumbled across us, well, thanks for joining us. And you're very welcome too. We broadcast live every day, 10 o'clock, because my name's Ken and it's 10. Why do we do that? Because we like to talk about property, all things property. We love it. We love the subject of property, house prices, what's going to happen, stamp duty. Got a big one on stamp duty for you today. Some headlines that might be of interest to you if you're in that position, think about selling. You know, the big hot topic on everyone's lips right now is what is going to happen with the stamp duty holiday. I'm going to come on to that shortly. Some other property news headlines. We are James Alexander Estate Agents, by the way. We're based in southwest London between Streatham and Croydon, an area called Norbury, Zone 3 commuter, although not many of you are commuting right now, but we are here for you when you go back to work. And that will be shortly the way things are looking. What a fantastic vaccine rollout we've had. It's been awesome, hasn't it? 15 million people. Incredible. Really pleased about that. Children going back to school in March. All things looking good. I don't think I've ever been in such a time where there's so many positives on one hand, so many negatives on the other, you know. But let's get some property headlines in. Right. Okay. First of all, postcodes that saw the biggest house price rises and falls in 2020. There's an interesting one. There's a mirror investigation, and it uses land registry sales figures based on 2019 and 2020, and it reveals the streets where property prices have risen and fallen the most in the past 12 months. The most expensive postcode was W1S, and that's Westminster. So no big surprises there. 7 sales in 2020 had an average price of 3.1 million. Other areas are more interesting to me, though. DN6 in North Yorkshire, the average price rose from 192,500 to 520,000. That's extraordinary, isn't it? 192,500 to 520,000. That's North Yorkshire. And then another one, and this is a bit closer to home for those of you in the local area, SL5. And if you're wondering where SL5 is, as I did, it's in Ascot. And prices there have risen from an average of 192,500 to 520,000. Mind-blowing, isn't it? And then we've got, sorry, no, that's the last one. The, I beg your pardon, I'll take that back. SL5 Ascot, the price rise was from 800,000 average to 1.85 million. 1.85 million from 800,000. That's Ascot. The lowest average price was in Durham, and that was 45,000. Gosh, that seems incredible, doesn't it? 45,000 for a house, but you have to go all the way up to Durham. Postcodes where house prices have fallen the most in the past year include WF12, which is Leeds, which has gone down from 260,000 to 120, and S12 in Derbyshire, which has gone from 372,000 to 190,000. Interesting figures. Lenders ditch tracker deals. Now, this is no great surprise to me. If you're in a mortgage where you've got one of these tracker loans, one of my colleagues that's involved heavily in buy-to-let and has lots of buy-to-let properties hitched all of his properties onto a tracker some years ago, and now rates are at 0.75. His rate is virtually zero because the lenders weren't ever expecting rates to go down that low. So now what's happening is that those the availability of those tracker deals to track the base rate is decreasing, and it's hardly surprising. The broker John Charcoal said lenders got severely caught out by lifetime trackers. They really did. Not that we should shed a tear for them. Sold before the financial crisis and are now understandably cautious about offering cheap rates on tracker deals. Now, this is not mortgage advice, but do look at the lower rates on those. Sometimes they have what's called a collar. A cap is where they're stopping the rate from going up a certain level, and a collar is where they're stopping it from going down. And quite often that collar is set above the current base rate anyway. So you need to look at your collars if you're looking at using a tracker mortgage. So apart from that, what have we got? Property projects gaining appeal over lockdown. This is one from Hamptons. The number of homes bought by property developers rose by 26% in the first half of 2020 compared to the year before, according to Hamptons. Knight Frank estimates that the number of unmodernised properties sold reached a 4-year high, up from 6.6% to 7.2%. The firm's James Grillo says even 18 months ago, people had little appetite to do much work. Now with lockdown, people are at home all the time. They're thinking about projects, and it's not just about a complete wreck. It's about younger families that can live in while renovating. Well, I've said for some time, you know, we're in the homes under the hammer generation. Yes, I'm biased. I know I'm on the show all the time. But I do think when you see a show where you've got a property that's a bit of a wrecker, and in the show what happens is that you see the wreck, and then literally within minutes of seeing that wreck, they come back and whoosh, magically there it is, the beautiful home, and it's worth 100,000 or so more, maybe even more, and you don't see the heartache and the money that's gone on in between. And it can give the false impression that property development is easy, cheap, simple to do. And quite often we're finding that people go into projects having literally no perception of what the value of those works might be. And it's quite extraordinary, really. Builders use dangerous cladding, donates to Tories. This is property developers who built flats covered in dangerous cladding, and they've donated 2.5 million to the Conservative Party since the Grenfell fire in 2017. Analysis by the Times has found among developer donors are the Reuben brothers, owners of several flats which use the same cladding as that on Grenfell. Others include Delancey, Steve Morgan, Red Rose founder. The Shadow Housing and Planning Minister accused Minister of protecting Conservative donors. Well, I've said for a while that it is suspicious these days, isn't it? That, we get these situations where everybody, sort of seems to be getting the good end of the deal with the government, especially when it comes to incentives for first-time buyers going out to builders. And many of you know that angers me. What I want to see is those first-time buyer deals go to first-time buyers not wanting new homes, because first-time buyers don't really want new homes. They want a home. They're forced into new homes because the government say that's the only way they can get help to buy. And that's what needs to change. And that's why I'm really keen that we hear something about on March the 3rd. Now, on to the headline I know you're all waiting for, Rishi Sunak and what he's going to do about the stamp duty holiday. And this is an article by The Telegraph. And I often think The Telegraph is one of those papers that the government uses as a kind of way of testing public opinion on an idea before they officially announce it, so they can see what the reaction is, see whether or not it would be a good idea to actually implement it. So this is what it says. It says Rishi Sunak could extend the stamp duty holiday by 6 weeks in a boost for homeowners. The Chancellor is considering a limited extension of the holiday through to mid-May, according to The Telegraph. The possible extension would alleviate fears of sales falling through after the March deadline. A source told The Telegraph, it is certainly the case that a lot of people would be caught in the completion trap if the holiday were to end when it is due. But the Chancellor is said to oppose a longer 6-month extension over concerns over Britain's growing deficit. A Treasury spokesman told the paper, we do not comment on future policy outside of fiscal events. Yeah, they've definitely had a chat with Rishi, haven't they? I think. Mr. Sunak announced plans to raise the threshold from 125 to 500 in a bid to kickstart the housing market. This has resulted in a surge in demand, and house prices are up 6.4% in January compared with the same period last year. But Brits have also been hit with severe delays as a result of lockdown and as a result of the huge volume of buyers that are currently trying to get their sales through. A third of house sales, I reckon, could fall through if it's not extended. Interesting. And what we think is that, yes, it would be helpful for them to extend that deadline by 6 weeks, but it would be more helpful for them to extend it by another year. And I think that's the fillip that the economy really needs. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like, to me, we're going to get a straight 6-week extension, not for existing sales, but a straight 6 weeks extension. If that happens, it means that those agreeing sales now have sufficient time to actually get the deal through, whereas it was looking fairly impossible. If he gives the green light, and I suspect it will happen on March the 3rd, then that extra 6 weeks could be enough time for many to actually complete the transactions that are currently going. But also, more importantly, could be enough time for a new buyer to come along and actually make an offer, tie up the deal, and exchange and complete. So really interesting to see what happens there. And I think there we've got the crux of it. It's not going to be for existing buyers. It's going to be a straight 6-week extension. They talked about doing it for existing buyers, but I think then what they've done is looked at it and gone, how do we do that? How do we say, well, it's agreed? What does agreed mean? A verbal agreement, solicitors exchange, how we monitor and police that? So I think they're just going to come up with a straight 6-week extension to the deadline. And I think that has to be a good thing. It's better than nothing. I would like to see it extended much further. Well, that's it for today. We're just about to go into our weekly sales meeting. I hope you have a fantastic Monday, and we'll be back same time tomorrow for another Ken at 10. Take care of yourselves and your families.